Welcome to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast, Achieving Peace Through Compassion. This podcast is a recording of the Dharma Talks given during our Sunday service. This talk was given by Lama Matthew Palden Gocha.
Okay, so this week, as part of our Bodhisattva Challenge, we're engaging in the third part of mind training. And so today we're going to explore something that every one of us shares, and that's adversity. Whether it's loss, illness, conflict, anxiety, disappointment, or uncertainty, no one signs up for these experiences, and yet they're unavoidable. Every spiritual tradition promises something in the face of difficulty. Some promise rescue, some promise explanation, some promise reward at a later time. Buddhism promises something far more unsettling and far more empowering. It tells us that adversity itself is workable. It's not something to bypass, not something to merely endure, but something that can become part of our path. The third point of mind training states this bluntly. When the entire world and all living beings are filled with negativity, transform all adversity into the path of awakening. I don't know. Do we feel like the entire world and all living beings are filled with negativity right now? Just a little bit. It always does. It seems like just when we didn't think it could get bad enough, it gets bad. But we see this in the same theme in other Lojong texts as well. Verse 4, the 8 verses of mind training by Lingri Tongpa, we read, see ill-natured people or those overwhelmed by heavy misdeeds or suffering. I will cherish them as something rare, as something I'd found, as though I found a priceless treasure, end quote. So these are not poetic encouragements. They are practice instructions. There will be times when we feel that the world is filled with negativity or that mishaps arise on our path. The Lojong verses we are working with this week give us a simple and concise instructions for how to work with these obstacles and adversity. When the antidote is applied to a poison, the harm is counteracted, but only if we actually take the medicine. And Traleg Kabgyong Rinpoche says, mind training enables us to utilize adversity instead of allowing misfortune to drive us into a corner with no answers. This tendency to adopt a defeatist attitude in the face of evil is the biggest obstacle to our everyday lives and the greatest hindrance to the attainment of our spiritual goals. So why then does adversity hurt so much? Adversity does not hurt only because of what happens. It hurts because of how we interpret what happens. Traleg Rinpoche writes, adverse circumstances and situations are an integral part of conditioned existence. And he also goes on and says that there is much to contend with, and our ability to prevent or circumvent difficulty is quite limited, in quotes. We suffer because we believe. We believe this should not be happening. Someone must be to blame. This means something is wrong with me. This threatens who I am. Lojong does not deny pain. It diagnoses ego clinging as the amplifier. Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche states, all suffering comes through not recognizing ego clinging as our enemy. And this is kind of a radical claim. The true enemy is not the situation, it's not the person, it's not the illness, it's not the loss. It's the belief in a solid I that must be defeated. When suffering fills our world through loss, conflict, diminishing circumstances, Lojong does not tell us to escape. It doesn't tell us to run off to the monastery, to go hide in a cave like a hermit. It tells us these very conditions are the path. And there's 3 ways to do this: through relative bodhicitta, ultimate bodhicitta, and special practices. And so this week, we're working with the first one, relative bodhicitta. And this brings us to one of the most misunderstood and challenging Lojong slogans: drive all blames into one. This does not mean self-hatred, it means clarity. And it does not mean ignoring harm or injustice. It means working with the inner causes of suffering, even when outer causes must also be addressed. Pema Chodron tells us this is advice on how to work with your fellow beings. Everyone is looking for something to blame, and therefore aggression and neuroses keep expanding. Instead, pause and look at what's happening with you. This approach reduces suffering, yours and everyone else's. Jamyong Control also tells us that we should consider that this ego-cherishing attitude is to blame. I shall do whatever I can to subdue it. The Lojong masters are ruthless here because sentimentality does not liberate us. Ego clinging says, this is happening to me. I must defend myself. I must be right. I must not lose. And Shantideva is quoted repeatedly in texts. All the harm that which this world is rife, all fear and suffering that there is, clinging to the I has caused it. What am I to do with this great demon? Notice what this does. Instead of collapsing under adversity, we regain agency. If ego clinging is the cause, it can be trained. If it can be trained, suffering is workable. This is not passivity. It is responsibility without blame. When adversity arises, what's our first impulse? It's usually resistance. Resistance, though, tightens the body. Resistance narrows our mind, and resistance hardens our heart. The practice begins with a simple but profound shift from why is this happening to what is happening right now. We pause and we observe. We observe our sensations, our emotions, our stories, our impulses. We discover something quite liberating. The experience is changing, awareness is not. And this is not philosophy, it's a lived insight. And once resistance softens and we are no longer fighting our experience, the next question is not simply how to endure adversity, but how to relate to it. And Lojong answers this by asking us to contemplate something both simple and unsettling, the great kindness of all beings. And when we hear the phrase all beings, it can sound abstract or idolized. But in Lojong, this means very specific people, those who support us, those who disappoint us, those who challenge us, and especially those who make our practice difficult. Jamyong Control reminds us that awakening does not happen in isolation. It happens in relationship. Without other beings, there would be no challenges to our ego clinging, no occasions for patience, no training ground for compassion. In this way, even though what we experience as obstacles are from the perspective of the path benefactors. This does not mean that harm is good. It means that the conditions that provoke reactivity also reveal where freedom is possible. To work with this skillfully, Khenpo Lodru Taye Rinpoche teaches 3 forms of patience, not as ideals, but as trainings that stabilize the mind in the face of adversity. And I think these are very important for us this week to focus our practice on. Patience of accepting suffering. This is this of not being shocked by pain. Earlier, we spoke about a shift from why is this happening to me to what is happening right now. This patient grows when we recognize that suffering is not personal failure, but a feature of conditioned existence. Accepting suffering does not mean liking it. It means not fighting reality as it is. And when we stop demanding that life conforms to our expectations, the heart begins to soften rather than collapse. The second form of patience that Rinpoche teaches is the patience of not blaming the harm doer. Again, this does not mean denying harm. It does not mean excusing harmful actions. And it does not mean staying in unsafe situations. It means that before we fix blame, we pause and remember the slogan, drive all blame into one. And then we reflect. This person wants happiness just like I do, but they don't know how to create its causes. And when people cause harm, they are acting under the power of ignorance and disturbing emotions such as anger, attachment, or jealousy. They are not acting from freedom or clarity. Rinpoche says that they are under the power of other, like someone swept away by a strong current. Human beings are not fundamentally corrupt. The problem is that afflictive emotions compel us to act. And this reflection is not meant to excuse harm. Its purpose is to counteract our anger. So when harm occurs, we train ourselves to think. This is not a flaw in the person. It is the power of their disturbing emotions. When we change how we think, we change how we experience. By not blaming the harm doer, we prevent anger from taking root, and we stop adding further suffering, and we make compassion possible. And the third form of patience arises from wisdom. And this is the patience that comes from understanding the nature of experience itself. When we see that experiences arise from causes and conditions, emotions are impermanent, identities are not fixed, then patience is no longer something we force. It becomes a natural steadiness of our mind. And with this understanding, adversity loses its power to define us. And when we contemplate on the kindness of all beings and train in these three forms of patience, something essential happens. Adversity no longer feels like an interruption on the path. It becomes the ground of the path. Patience keeps the heart open, and an open heart is what allows bodhicitta to arise. And with that, we are ready to move from working with our own suffering to transforming adversity into the fuel of awakening for the sake of all beings. And Khentrul Lodro Thaye Rinpoche says, suffering becomes the fuel for our practice, like dry wood on a fire. It lights the path and enhances our spiritual practice. So here the teachings turn decisively Mahayana. Our instinct is to contract around suffering, my pain, my story, my injustice. But Lojong reverses the direction. Dilko Khyentse Rinpoche says, if we have instructions on how to carry obstacles onto the path, then no matter how many difficulties come upon us, they will simply clarify our practice and have no power to hinder us on our path. Clarity, not destruction. Why? Well, as Tralek Kyabgon Rinpoche puts it plainly, we grow more quickly if we are open to working with difficulties rather than constantly running away from them. Because adversity reveals something universal. When we suffer, we discover others suffer like this too. And this recognition transforms isolation into connection. The second slogan we're introduced to is meditate on the great kindness of all. And this is where taking and sending, or Tonglen, enters, not as a technique, but as a reversal of our habit. As Geshe Langri Tangpa says, I will take defeat upon myself and give the victory to others. This is not moral heroics. It is strategic. Self-cherishing tightens suffering. Others regarding it loosens it. And this is why bodhisattvas pray to be born in difficult worlds. As Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche writes, the immediate causes of the attainment of Buddhahood are other beings, and we should truly be grateful to them. Without adversity, compassion remains theoretical. Through adversity, it becomes embodied. The texts are uncompromising, but they are not cruel. As Tralek Rinpoche cautions, sometimes we generate too much emotion in our Lojong practice and run the risk of being overwhelmed. Transformation does not mean bypassing our grief. It does not mean tolerating abuse or harm. It does not mean suppressing pain or trauma. It means not wasting suffering. Sometimes the practice is simply not hardening, allowing tears, allowing uncertainty, and allowing help. That too is our path. So let me close with one of the most uncompromising and liberating Lojong statements. As Drupchen Jigme Timpa Nima said, seeing suffering as an ally to help us on the path, we must learn to develop a sense of joy when it arises. This is freedom from victimhood. Adversity does not disappear. When it comes, and it will, we can ask, what is this teaching me about clinging? How can this open my heart rather than close it? And how can this serve awakening? The storm does not disappear, but we no longer mistake the storm for the sky. Rather than ending with more analysis, which I'm sure you're happy for, I'd like to end with a few verses from Dilgo Kensei's prayer of aspiration for mind training. May all disease, famine, belligerence, wrong views, impairments, transgressions, downfalls, harmful actions, self-cherishing, obstacles, harmful influences, and impediments all ripen upon me and me alone. And to all these beings who are limitless as space, I dedicate long life, glory, wealth, happiness, power, experience, realization, and knowing, loving wisdom. May they all, through the supreme enlightened actions, attain the level of the most splendid noble one. In short, may all the causes and effects of egotism and self-cherishing ripen on me, and may all beings gain a wealth of benefit and happiness, and realize the meaning of emptiness and compassion. So may your week be filled with compassion and wisdom, gratefulness and joy, and thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast. Music was provided by Barefoot Bran Music. Please consider supporting the Rime Buddhist Center by making a donation at our website at www.rimecenter.org/donate.